Hello, Joy Seekers. This is Deb McGregor here with your winter series, Infusion of Joy. I am so thrilled to be with you today. As a part of the winter series, it is my pleasure to welcome Arnold Volker of Inventor U. I always want to say Inventing You, but Inventor U to the show. Welcome, Arnold.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, you and I just love having conversations. So, as always, I can't wait to see where this goes because it always goes somewhere. And sometimes we don't know where it's going, but
Yeah,
we just roll with it, kind of like
part,
inventions, right?
yeah, part of the adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Arnold, let's start a little bit with how Inventor U became like it came to be, because you actually run a whole nother business. You've got several different things going on. And then you decided, you know what, there's this call in your life. So let's talk a little bit about how it got started.
Okay. Always been passionate about creating things, and my grandfather invented one of the first potato planters back in 1917, and always enjoyed creating and stuff with him. And my son was 12. He created a product, and that kind of still helped us be open today as a manufacturing company. So always been very passionate about creating things and helping others. And so, kind of as a give back or try to help other people, we always get approached at our factory, Next Innovations, of trying to help people with actual products. And so, one way to do that is to have something a little bit more formal, like so I created Inventor U, and I've been helping consulting and that kind of stuff. And it's not just about products or services. I truly believe, everybody's inventing themselves or their life or things that they're doing on a daily basis, just being creative. And I think when we think of ourselves as inventors, it just gives us a whole nother level of chutzpah, if that's a word, or just passion of being more tenacious and continuing to either create that product or just create that change in your life that you want to do.
Yeah, I love what you're bringing up around this. And I think it's actually interesting that I confused ing with the or, right? Because I actually started, there's something about when we say inventing you, inventor you, they actually both have purpose,
Yeah,
because I feel like they drive that inventor piece in a unique way. And I love that you're bringing up this creativity piece of things, because really, isn't creativity the solution when you're stuck? When
yeah,
you feel stuck, it's like just start creating something.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that's something I've always enjoyed or have been fairly good at in my career, is just problem solving. So it's like, how do you step outside the tornado? I always say it's like, and you can't really make a good decision from a decision point of weakness, or so sometimes you just have to step back or step out of that, and that creative part is really what pulls you through. And I think, yeah, just being passionate about that, I want to honor it and try to help others. And I do feel blessed to have not only a factory and the ability to be good at certain things, but how do I help others?
Yeah. So that's a great transition to, I was just talking to you before we went live about this phrase I had heard on a show about, we're all just here to walk each other home. That, we're all in this life, we all have a purpose. And when we step into that purpose, we're really helping others.
Right.
I'm curious about, in this place of Inventor U and this walk home, how do we help people invent themselves or drive that passion home, right? Because so many things get in the way of it.
Yeah. I like that walking home, because sometimes the path is cobblestone and sometimes it's uphill, downhill, and crooked, and it takes us a long time. So I think that's a good metaphor. I think for most people, it's finding the why. Why do you want that change? Why do you want that invention? Or, especially when it's a product or service, you truly believe that it's going to impact other people. And I think, just applying that to yourself, it's like, some people believe people can't change. And I truly think when you think of yourself as an inventor, that brings up a whole nother element, and it makes it somewhat more achievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as you're talking too, I'm thinking about that why. And it's one way I like to sometimes frame it with people is like, what's the impact you want to create?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. But there's this thing about when I am fully in my purpose, I do more joy probably, right? Like when I'm doing what it is that I'm called to do.
Mm.
So how, as you're working with people in this place of inventing, what are the ways that you're able to bring that out, that why, that passion, that impact? What are some of the things you have found, well, even to be useful for yourself?
Yeah, I think it's usually the questions that we ask ourselves. Whether it's changing just a little portion of your day, it's like, well, why do I want to do that? Just being more curious, and usually that curiosity drives energy. It's like when we start asking questions, we seem just like we're back to being a kid again. When everybody was young, we asked a million questions, and for some reason, when we get to be adults, it's like we either get tired of that or it's like, but I think just asking yourself questions, and sometimes they're just extremely basic. It's like, what will this change do for me? And
Yes.
just try to explore and journal around that. Very similar to a product. It's like, what are the features and benefits of this product line or service? And, then you get into packaging and all those other things, but it's still a relatively simple thing that comes back to, what questions are we asking to start?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're bringing down, write about it, explore here. There's two things I really want to go into. We'll get back to the like a child. Let's talk about the writing for a moment. I know that this is something you feel very strongly about, and you actually write on a regular basis. How do you feel that writing, journaling, thoughts down, how does that help you move ideas forward, move yourself forward, and even see that growth and insight in yourself?
Yeah. Again, it just gets back to that playful side of asking questions and trying to explore. And a friend of mine recently, it's like in the middle of the night. Sometimes you wake up and you can't sleep, and so now with iPhones or smartphones, I mean, they're in. You can record things. So now I've been waking up and I'll record that thought, and in the morning it's always fun to. It's like, boy, I don't even remember any of that. It's like delete, delete, delete. And then it's like there'll be one that's extremely precious of, wow, that's pretty profound. So I think
Yeah.
our mind is always on and it's always trying to solve problems. And, that's kind of how we're wired. So the more you can try to tap into that, the better.
Yeah.
So recording either electronically or just recording, in general of writing, if you just kind of think of creative writing back in whether you were in college or high school, it's just accesses a different side of your brain, and you kind of explore things or allow yourself to explore things that you normally wouldn't.
Yeah. I'm so glad in some ways for technology. Okay, it can get in the way too, but I
Yeah.
love, so for me, there's nothing that beats writing with a pencil. I love writing with pencils. There's something. And what I also know is sometimes I'm driving along in the car, my brain goes into default mode. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just had this like brilliant
Yeah.
idea. And it's like, oh, voice memo. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
voice memo.
Yeah.
And I can get it. And I love that because then I don't miss it. And like you're bringing up, you wake up in the middle of the night and you're thinking, oh, I should get up and write this down. It's like, oh my gosh, who wants to get up and write?
Yeah.
But you can hit record and you can like, here you are sounding half asleep, but you're getting it down, right? Like
Yeah.
some like songwriters talk about some of the best song ideas they get. It's in the middle of the night because the brain is not full of all that noise, right?
Yeah.
Like all
Yeah.
that noise gets out of the way.
Yeah. And even listening to your own passion in your own voice, or you're just, the other things that you get along with it is just kind of entertaining to me.
Yeah, yes, absolutely, and it's so funny. How many times do we find ourselves like I'll hear myself talking like, why wasn't I recording that? That's perfect. That's exactly what I need to say,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But in
Yeah.
the voice memo, we can capture that and then bring it, bring it to life for others. I want to go back to this thing about as a kid. You were talking about, as a child, we don't have all these things we make up about. Is this right? Or is this wrong? Is this good? Is this bad? And what is that about? Like, how do we be more childlike as adults? Because kids just don't have all those judgments on each, right? Like, it's a completely different thing.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. For me, I keep going back to questions because it's like we're more curious when we're kids or we're learning things. And And at some point, it seems like, and I don't mean this in an arrogant way, I think people think, well, I've learned a lot, or I forget the percentage that they say that you learn by the time you're two, but to me, it's a lifelong thing, and I love audiobooks and things like that. So it's constantly trying to educate yourself and look for things that make you passionate, or tenacious, or to get through that tough time. I mean, we've all faced tough times in the last few years, especially, and you can get run down, or kind of caught in this humdrum moment, and it's like, well, by just listening to your own inner voice. I mean, all of us have an inner voice, and it's sometimes negative, sometimes positive, and so how do you honor that and try to explore around what's going to make you happy in that moment, or joyful of things that you're doing. And for me, it's being creative and trying to help others, trying to give them that level of confidence. Well, what if somebody else is already doing it? Or and it seems like around the world, if there truly is a need, somebody else comes up with it, or a different version of it. So I think it's on all of us, and especially when it comes to youth. I mean, youth plays such a large role in our future, but yet we don't do a lot about them being entrepreneurial, or you don't see too many lemonade stands anymore on the street corners where young kids are selling. So I mean, how do we create young entrepreneurs and be more active in that whole process?
Well, speaking of young entrepreneurs, I was up in War Road for the DD Hub 5-year anniversary, and they have this program, the Kidpreneur program. And I was interviewing these young adults. This one, I mean, they were all fascinating to me, but the one that really fascinated me was this gal who basically goes to thrift stores, consignment stores, buys clothing, and then takes it apart and actually creates new outfits, putting together clothes from all these consignment stores. And they were amazing. We're not talking like just a sweatshirt here. She was creating prom dresses, and they were gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. I said, "You're going to be in New York someday. Like you are. I mean, stay in Minnesota. That's great, but I'm just saying, just her creative ability. But it was so unique how she was pulling all this together, and affordable, right? Like she was
Yeah,
buying stuff for 50 cents a buck, this and that, and putting together something that honestly people probably would pay 250, 300 bucks for. And
yeah,
it's so inspiring. Like I
yeah,
got so inspired talking to her. I'm like, this is our future. We have a future, right?
yeah, yeah. And I think the other thing too with kids, they don't necessarily have that glass ceiling, per se, and but us as parents can be more active in helping with that. But a lot of times we install some kind of it's like, well, this is as high as I'm going to go, and your whole life can change just with one or two ideas.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so true. So let's talk to people about they get those one or two ideas. A lot of people don't do anything with it, right? The
Yeah,
one or two ideas come and then it just falls away.
yeah.
What are one or two ideas that we can just share with people right now? If you get the one or two ideas, I mean, the first thing I would say is like write it down, right? Because then it gives it something. But what's something else we could tell people that when you get that idea, here's a great suggestion for a next step?
Well, I think that the people that are around us has such an impact. So I think sharing your idea with others not only holds you accountable, and it creates motion that you're starting that process. I forget the person that said we're a product of our five closest relationships, but that truly helps remind you that there are people that you should have around you to be supportive, whether that's somebody like myself, or it's could be just somebody that you look up to. So I have some close friends that I try to keep them up to date on what I'm doing and what I'm thinking about, and it's interesting how that process makes me accountable to keep that thing moving.
Yeah.
So I'd say, writing it down, like you said, sharing that idea with others, and then the whole fun of, let's say it's a product versus just changing something in your day. I mean, start the prototype process. It's like,
Yeah.
whether it's just a simple change of what you're doing, what's the impact of that, so, and the tracking of it, and prototyping, we've made products here and we've made maybe 80,000 of one particular product, and we're still looking for ways to improve it. And then it's kind of comical. It's like, well, God, that's a great idea. Why didn't we do that before? So it's being open to that, there you should be constantly improving. So that's part of the ISO, constant quality improvement. So I think just asking those questions and searching for that, is a good way to keep it going.
Yeah, well, and what's coming up for me as you're talking about this is like there's no such thing as perfect. Like we're constantly evolving, we're constantly growing. Like
Yeah,
why didn't you do it better? Because you didn't have that information or that data or that insight yet. And there's purpose in all of it. I truly believe there's purpose in that process and journey. And I'm sure if you took a poll of even people who write books, they would all say, "Yeah, I would have written this part different, whatever." But if we wait until it's perfect, we don't do anything, right? And I love, you and I have an amazing friend in Rick Tamlin who does the Produce You program, and one of the things I think we both learned from him is get it out there, get it done, and empower until further notice.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
further notice, maybe we can do something better or whatever. But if we don't just get it out there and go before you know, I mean, we have all these great slogans that Rick taught us, but I know for me that was just like really because I tend to be one of those who it needs to be perfect, it needs to sound right. And
Yeah,
what I realized is no, it doesn't, because nobody is perfect.
yeah.
And people will hear it how they're supposed to hear it, right?
Seems like people are more forgiving now than ever. I mean, we've all been on the video conferencing, Zoom, StreamYard, all of them, and we've all had technical issues. And it seems like people are more acceptance of that than ever before because it's actually a live thing, and
Yep.
when you're live, things happen. So that's been interesting, just watching that, how people are more patient with each other and supportive than ever. I mean, because I've done presentations 20 years ago and it's like you're just a wreck in front of real people, and sometimes they're not very compassionate. so
Yeah,
so
we've experienced all of the above, right?
yeah,
For
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
So speaking of constant growth, constant improvement, constant insights and wisdom into the world, you've got a book coming out. So you're a part of a book that's coming
part,
out.
yeah.
Talk to us about this book project and a little bit about the topic, what you're going to be speaking about, and how are people going to be able to get this book?
Yeah. There's a company called Mission Matters. So when you think of mission related to, what you believe in, and so Mission Matters is putting out volumes. They're on this sixth volume, and they reach out to individuals, and so they reached out to me to be included in volume 6, and it's really focused on business leaders. And so I wrote a couple different chapters and submitted them to them. So it's going to come out the end of this month. Mission Matters Volume 6 for business leaders on Amazon, and I'll have some also. So I mean, if people end up signing up or doing something with me, whether it's consulting or something, we'll have some complimentary books. But it I love writing, and so it's an honor just to be in one chapter, and it's putting yourself out there like you just mentioned, and in that capacity, hopefully that leads to doing something more complete. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a feeling like you have a lot more books in you. I mean, I think there's a lot more to come from Arnold. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the way, no questions about that. So you mentioned people possibly being able to get a copy of this, doing some work with you. How do people work with you? What does that look like?
So I have a website, Facebook page, Inventor U. I do have some packages and things like that. I mean, I have done speaking engagements. So just if, let's say you're a nonprofit or some kind of events coming up and you want somebody to speak at an event. So I do anything from speaking events to one-on-one consulting. Um, and the one-on-one is what I like the most. I mean, it's and I have like an entrance type form that person would fill out, so we can kind of hit the ground running. But so that's kind of there's like 4 30-minute sessions that they can sign up for. Otherwise, I do have a complimentary like half an hour thing on the website. So it's inventor invention-u.com. And, it's all about just trying to help people, I think. And some people don't know what the next steps are. So it's trying to help them, to what steps they take. Sometimes it's really simple. I mean, people think, you know, of a name, but they haven't really checked the United States Patent and Trade Office to see if that name is available. So there's lots of simple steps. When it's you as an individual, I think sometimes people get stuck. And so,
Mhm.
like you do coaching and things like that, I think people just need that person to keep them excited and accountable. So I love doing that. I do it every day here at work. So it's like, how do I help other people? And when it comes to the product manufacturing and packaging and distribution, we have experience with that. Maybe it's something that it also leads to helping that individual on the company, but it's not necessarily required.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, and I love that people have a place to go. I know one of the things I've really learned is that when people are starting businesses, they can get super overwhelmed. So you've got the component where, like, here's the idea, here's the thing that needs to be developed. Then there's the person
Yeah,
that's involved in it, and then there's all the businessy stuff, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like, and you work with all of it. Like, this is something that you can help people in all of these places, and I love that you are offering this to people. I did put your website in you probably can't see this right now, but I did put it in the comments because we want to encourage people to reach out. I mean, at a minimum, spend 30 minutes with you,
yeah,
get some insights and look and see if this is something that they would be interested in doing. And I know that one of the things that I always tell entrepreneurs is that when you work with someone, you will go farther faster. It doesn't mean you don't have patience. It doesn't mean that there are times when it might go a little slower, but you constantly, when you're working with somebody like yourself as in almost like a business consulting coaching capacity, you have that person in your corner.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it does help you. And I just wanted to underscore that and highlight it for people because I think sometimes we think, oh, I can do it on my own or I can, right? And boy, have you and I learned that the hard way,
yeah,
right? I
yeah.
mean,
It's just nice to have a sounding board. And, this is what I'm thinking. And there's constantly little forks in the road. Do I go this way or that way? And somebody that's going to help you, like you mentioned, Rick Tamlin. I mean, he's been wonderful and just, kind of identifying, okay, what do you want to accomplish? And pretty soon you're over here. And that's kind of the same with products. It's like, well, what really are you trying to accomplish with this product?
yeah, absolutely. Well, and I was just thinking as, we were talking about, you were talking about your circle and the people that you put around you. I mean, I feel very fortunate that you're one of the people in my circle. I mean, you and I just, I think it was a couple weeks ago, I said, hey, got this idea. I just can't seem to tweak it out enough. And you're like, let's go grab a cup of coffee, cup of tea. And we sat down and you're like, yeah, this works. This doesn't work. That, you were able to just start pulling out like, this works. This doesn't work. Here's what I'd consider doing here. Here's what would
Yeah,
make this better. And because of the way that your brain problem solves, you're able to pick that stuff out very quickly.
yeah,
And then what I love is then we have a conversation about it. It's like,
yeah,
okay, well, how does this work? How does this not work? And how does this match where you want to be? And that's one thing I think you do extremely well is you're constantly pointing people back to, is this really going the direction you want to go? Does this product or this service, does it ultimately tie into this, the bigger where you want to be? And
yeah,
I think that's your brain it's strategic, but it's also visionary. And you really see you pulling those elements in when you're working with people. And I feel blessed to have you as a friend because I like to go to lunch because we're always
yeah,
getting insights from each other. But I think that that's just important that people realize that through working with you through the Inventor U, that they can have access to that and
yeah,
that skill set that you bring to everybody.
yeah,
So, book coming out end of the month. People can buy it on Amazon. Mission Matters, the 6th edition for
yeah,
business. And we want to remind people that they can get a 30-minute complimentary consultation scheduled with you.
yeah,
Head on over to the Inventor U Facebook, and regardless, start getting on in your Facebook group so they can follow what you're doing.
yeah,
Inventor-u.com. And is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you just feel like, oh, you need to know this today? Like it's just popping for you?
Well, one thing I was thinking about when you were talking, let's see, here's just
Yeah.
a simple coffee mug, but on the back of it, it's just reminders. So I mean, I'm always looking for ways, to inspire myself or inspire others. And really, when you think of youth, how has youth and changed the world? So like it was, on the back of this coffee mug, and I'll read these because I know them, but I don't want to screw them up. The kid, it was 11 years old that invented the popsicle. Frank Epperson. It's Chester Greenwood at the age of 15 invented the earmuffs. Lewis Greenwood invented Braille. And then George Neeson at 16 invented the trampoline. I mean, so and there's hundreds of examples, and what do we do as parents? Can we help our kids better? I mean, you see these success stories all the time. So how do we just have these simple things in front of us that can remind ourselves that's I can do that, or it might take a little more energy, or who do I need to surround myself? Whether it's Deb, you're amazing as far as always being up and joyful, and that's because you have a lot of that in front of you, and you're focused on it. So how do we change our focus some and get to that destination that we're trying to get to?
Yeah. Oh, amen. I mean, woo! Here we go, right? That's
Yeah.
yeah. I know. It's like I'm feeling kind of motivated right now to invent. Are you feeling a little more motivated? Like,
Yeah, and I truly believe, God plays a role in trying to bring out certain things in us, and you have to be aware of that, and not listening. Sometimes some of these things you'll have a thought, or and you should honor that and write it down, and you look back, and it's like you can kind of see a trail of how these thoughts impacted you, and to me they truly are blessings or a gift from God that kind of leads you down that path. But if you're focused on just reacting to today's events, which we all do. I mean, just before this call, I was reacting to something that was putting me in a negative space. So how do you get out of that and get that behind you and keep moving on? It's really being aware of your surroundings and the plan that God has in your life.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and good that we have this call, right? Because it completely can shift the energy. Like it's because you're focusing on creating now,
Yeah,
focusing on helping others create. Like it just completely shifts everything. It
yeah,
doesn't mean the other thing goes away. It just means that now you can shift focus and change your energy, right? Like it's just amazing.
yeah. Usually, when you're creating something, a lot of times you start with a blank piece of paper. So if you just have a blank piece of paper and it's just white, I mean, it's really easy to not be distracted. It's just a blank piece, and I can
Yeah.
I can create whatever I want on that. So
Yeah.
and life can be that way if you can get the negative stuff out of the way.
It's so true. I was laughing because I looked at my, well, I probably shouldn't. I don't want to get confidential. Okay, I have a very full sheet of paper. You guys
Yeah,
could see all the writing there. I didn't want to see what's on there, but I was looking at that, thinking, now what was it that I was supposed to do that I wrote down on that sheet? So
yeah,
then I started making another sheet where, like, I pulled everything out that actually needs to get done. But I tend to write like that, right? Like when I'm in mode.
yeah.
And then I realized, like, oh my goodness, I need to completely get this, organized. So Arnold, I want to thank you so much for coming today. This has been a blast. I just love, well, obviously I love talking to you and bringing forth these great ideas and great insights and wisdom for people. And just some of these reminders. I think it's not always that we don't know things, but it's that reminder, and I think that's important
Right,
too.
right.
And by the way, I don't know if you can see this or not in your screen, but you're getting some thumbs up, hearts, things that are coming through. So just want to let you know that. And we want to remind you, Inventor U on Facebook, inventor-u.com for Arnold's website. He's got his book, Mission Matters, the 6th edition for business, coming out the end of this month on Amazon. Don't forget to pick that up for yourself. And schedule 30 minutes with Arnold. I know that you will love it. I know you'll love it. So, Arnold, thanks again for coming on. And it's been amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Deb, for having me, and thanks for everybody. Have a great day.
Yeah, and we want to thank you for tuning in today. We want to remind you to infuse your life with joy, live joy, and share joy. We will be back next week with our Winter Infusion of Joy series, Wednesday at noon. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.